Anything in court?
We are nearing the end of this week of evidence, and I need to place on record that since the commencement of these proceedings, we've been having Advocate Letole representing the Ministry of Police on a watching brief. I'm of the view, as required by or authorized by Section 8 of the Inquest Act 58 of 1959, to authorize the issue of subpoenas to all the police officers who were involved in the arrest and interrogation of Mr. Esop and Mr. Timol. To the extent that such officers may still be alive, I'm authorizing through the Office of the National Directorate of Public Prosecution that subpoenas must be issued for those officers to come and testify in these proceedings when we resume in our next sitting. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll be adjourning and we'll be resuming sometime in July, and that those subpoenas must indicate that those police officers must be present. And tomorrow, I will give an order along the lines that the Commissioner, National Commissioner of Police, must be directed to assist with the location of these former police officers, their location, their whereabouts, and to facilitate the service of these subpoenas, and also to arrange through the police budget their representation via the state attorney. They must be here, they must come here to testify. And I take it, Advocate Letole, you will communicate this to the Commissioner. I'm not issuing any directives to the Commissioner now. I will do so tomorrow. So I'm giving notice that in event he wants to be heard before I issue those directives, then he must give instructions accordingly. And if there are problems with him in regard to that, then he will have to brief you or be here present tomorrow and give me reason why he should not be ordered to assist those former policemen or officers. Thank you. With that said, Mr. Vani.
As the court pleases. My Lord, the first witness this morning is Professor Kantilal Naik.
Professor?
Kantilal Naik. My Lord,
Yes.
His affidavit is in volume C at page 105.
Yes.
Professor Naik, please approach the witness box.
Your full name and surname?
My full name is Kantilal Chaganlal Naik.
Do you have any objection in taking the oath?
No, I don't have any objection.
Do you swear that the evidence that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. Professor, you may be seated, either now or during your testimony if you feel tired. I'm sure there must be a chair there. I hope it's not the interpreter's chair, which Mr. Bezos had a problem with.
No, you can use this one.
Okay.
Yes. Anytime you feel you want to sit down, by all means do so.
Thank you.
Just make sure that the microphone is nearer you. If you need assistance, the registrar will assist you with that.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to continue standing there now, to continue
Why
testifying
not?
standing?
I have no objection.
Oh, beautiful, yes. Okay.
Thank you, my lord. Professor Naik, as his lordship has indicated, if you're feeling tired, you want to sit down, you don't have to ask us. Please feel free just to take a seat.
Thank you very much.
And also, if you need to catch your breath or take a break, then please just indicate to his lordship, and I'm sure his lordship will accommodate you.
Thank you very much.
Professor Naik, thank you for responding to our request and coming to court today. Can you tell us what you're currently doing? I understand that you're retired.
I have retired and trying to sort of rest.
And before you retired, what were you doing?
I was actually a professor in a school of computational and applied maths at Wits University.
As a professor of applied mathematics.
And a professor of applied mathematics.
And Professor, can you inform the court how it was that you got to know the late Mr. Ahmed Timol?
Well, Ahmed Timol was actually in Roodepoort, and we were all in Roodepoort. And so we came to know each other. And of course, he was also teaching with me at the Roodepoort Indian High School.
Before I proceed, Professor Naik, you have seen your affidavit. Do you have a copy with you?
Yes, I have a copy with me.
And my lord, this affidavit is reflected in volume C of the record at page 105.
105, yes. Thank you.
Professor, just for the record, do you confirm that this is your affidavit and you confirm the contents thereof?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you were explaining to us that you lived in the community of Roodepoort and that you were teaching at the Roodepoort Indian School. Please continue from there.
Yes, I was teaching at Roodepoort Indian High School.
And is that where you first encountered Ahmed Timol?
Ahmed Timol actually, not necessarily, but he was actually also in Roodepoort, where he was born there, I think. And I was also there, so we were actually friends.
I see. And as it turns out, you were also teaching at the same school?
At the same school, thank you.
Let's move on to how it was that you were arrested and detained. According to your affidavit, at paragraph 9, Your Lordship,
Yes.
you were arrested on Saturday, 23rd October. Can you advise the court the circumstances of your arrest? Or first when the police came to talk to you?
At Roodepoort, I was actually helping at the pharmacy called Mark Herson Pharmacy.
But sorry to interrupt you. Before you were at the pharmacy, did the police come to your home earlier that morning?
No.
According to your affidavit, at about 9 a.m.,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
police did come to your
Yeah,
house.
no, they did come to our house
For what purpose?
to say that, I'm actually friendly with late Ahmed Timol. And then I was probably involved with political attitude.
I see. And did they ask you to accompany them to the school?
Well, because I was a science teacher, they actually did come to the school. But I mean, in terms of chemicals and that, were part of the laboratory and wasn't going to be used for anything else except teaching.
Yes. But at the school, were they interested in taking something away?
Who, the police?
The security police, yes.
I can't remember that they wanted to take something away.
Yes. Well, to remind you, in your statement you say that they wanted to take your typewriter away.
Well, typewriter, of course, was the order of the day with various educators. And I think they wanted to take the thing so that the documents that they probably had from me was done by the typewriter.
Right. But you weren't arrested at that stage, and you then proceeded, according to your statement, to the pharmacy where you were working. And then what happened next?
Well, they take me to John Foster Square.
So they came to the pharmacy, and at that point,
They took me home, and from there they took me to John Foster Square. And of course, they started talking to me and said, look,
before you get to John Foster Square, did they indicate to you when they were arresting you why it was that they were arresting, why it was they were interested in you?
Well, they said that, I mean, being a science man, I'm actually somebody that's trying to oppose the government in more than many ways.
Right.
My attitude and my my knowledge about chemistry, but I'm not sure.
I see. Did they indicate to you that at the time of your arrest that they had been given your name by Ahmed Timol as a potential recruit?
Look, it was very difficult to deduce that, Timol had given the name. But there's a possibility. I mean, I'm not sure to say that he didn't. Because the security police were really terrible. In my case, of course, what had happened is that they said, "You bliksem sukuli, lig." And they had actually tied my hands like this.
Yes. Let's slow down a bit. Can I ask you, just for the record, it's also reflected in your statement, whether in fact you were part of Ahmed Timol's political or underground activities?
Look, I mean, majority of the learners and so forth, I mean, they were actually opposed to the government.
Yes.
In terms of their looking at the non-white people, and they said they were actually not part of the country. I mean, they're just there to make trouble. Because when I actually got detained, they says, "You're bliksem sukuli." you are actually terrible. He says, we'll throw you out of the
So
jail.
you were saying that you were opposed to apartheid, but you weren't part of Timol's underground unit.
No, yeah, because I mean, look, I was the eldest son in the family. I had actually, my father passed away, and I was supporting the family.
Right. Professor, you were explaining that you arrived at John Vorster Square, and what happened when you arrived at John Vorster Square? Where did they take you?
Initially, I think so, they took me to one of the offices and tried to sort of,
Was that on the 10th floor?
10th floor, yes.
Yes.
And they wanted to know from me in terms of chemicals and in terms of political background. And they said, look, it seems that, you're actually troublemaker and you wanted to create battles within the community. And you wanted to oppose the government. I mean, look, I was actually not, I was follower of Mahatma Gandhi, non sort of, what shall I say, killing people or
You were
something.
non-violent.
Non-violence, yes. I was brought up like that, and I didn't even hit any of my students when I was teaching. And I followed Mahatma Gandhi's sort of philosophy.
Did they want you to write out a statement?
Yeah, without a doubt. They said, what you prepared to say. And I actually firmly said that, look, I'm a non-violent person, and I'm not there to go and kill people. And had been sort of influenced by Mahatma Gandhi, who was actually our hero.
And what was their response to your statement? Did they believe what you were saying?
Well, no, they weren't, they weren't sort of impressed at all. They sort of wanted to sort of torture me, and they subsequently tortured me.
So as a result of their disapproval of what you had written in your statement,
Yeah.
they started to abuse you. Perhaps
Yeah.
you can now describe the kinds of abuse that you were subjected to.
Look, they had actually tied my hands like this and put the thing over the knees, and then they put a broomstick in between where you could actually put the broomstick in such a way that you're hanging, and they started rotating.
Did they describe what were they doing to you? Did they perhaps say that this was the aeroplane
Yes.
or helicopter?
Yeah,
treatment?
well, they said that, because once they started rotating, the thing got completely immobilized. I couldn't even hold anything, and I sort of cried. I said, well, look, I'm not even sure. And I actually complained to the magistrate that used to visit the.
Yes. Well, before we get to the complaints, and I know this must be difficult for you, but we'd like to explore the precise nature of the torture that you were subjected to. In your statement, you described that you were being swung like a seesaw from this broomstick. And how long approximately did that go on for?
Look, it actually went for quite a while. I would say that between 1 to 2 hours. And with that, you know, I mean, the hands got totally immobilized. And of course,
your hands became totally
totally, I
immobilized.
mean, I couldn't even catch anything. And it was like this. Subsequently, I mean, a guy called a physiotherapist, A.J. Koen, visited me. En hy sê ek is baie jammer dat die polisie het dit vir jou gedoen het. And he said, look, I'm going to actually treat you. And of course, with the electrical thing, he started taking both my hands and tried to get the
movement.
movement
to
and
return.
things like that.
Before we come to your post-torture treatment, can you describe to the court any other forms of abuse? So, for example, were you offered a chair to sit down? Or were you made to stand? And if so, for how long, approximately?
No, they didn't sort of offer me chair in that. But the physiotherapist was sort of much more understanding.
Before we get to your sessions with the physiotherapist, while you were being questioned and interrogated by the police officers, you were forced to stand, or did they allow you to sit?
The one police called A.J., I mean, Van Tonder, he was very sort of considerate. And he said to me, ek is baie jammer dat dis wat hulle gedoen het. And he says, look, he's sorry. Now, what had happened with this Van Tonder guy, I mean, I had actually done a textbook, calculations in physical science for matriculants and first-year university students. And I had given that a copy of, look, I mean, I couldn't even find publishers, you know, I mean, those days things were very difficult. I mean, if you were non-white, they weren't going to be publishing the thing. But what had happened is that there was actually a friend of mine who had a printing shop in Ferreirastown. And then I actually had all these things done. So I was able to actually sell the books.
Okay. Professor, we'll come to your post-detention life in the not too distant future. But if I could just keep you for the moment to the periods in which you were being interrogated and questioned by the police. Shortly we're going to be putting your police file up as an exhibit, and it will show that you were in fact questioned over several days by multiple officers. And we just want to establish that during some of that time or all of that time, were you standing or were you seated? To the best of your recollection.
Look, I was actually in the cells, and then of course, while I was there, I mean, that's when they had actually immobilized my hand. But then a physiotherapist called A.J. Koen said, kyk, jy moenie worry nie. And then he actually started using electrical connection to get the hands moving, and the muscles eventually got not 100%, but you know, I was able to hold things properly afterwards.
Okay. Robert, let's deal with the injuries that you suffered as a result of the hospital treatment. You said that you lost all use of your hands.
Yes.
Describe to the court the sensation and for how long you lost mobility
Yeah.
in your hands.
You see, the one particular policeman called Herr van Donde, I mean, he was quite a sort of understanding and felt that, look, that's not what they should have done. But what had happened was with Herr van Donde, I came to know him when I had actually published the textbook that he wanted a copy. And he was quite sort of understanding. And he spoke to A.J. Kuhn and said, look, please try to recover his hands to be able to hold. And that took a lot of time.
Yes. In your statement, and it was actually very shocking to read that because your hands were immobile, you had simply lost the ability to do basic things. For example, to wash and clean yourself. Can you describe that to the court and how you felt about that?
Look, virtually when you were there actually at John Foster Square, I mean, when I couldn't even use things, I mean, it wasn't easy. And as I said, look, the person that had a little bit of, sort of concern was this Van Tonder, A.J. Van Tonder. Simply because, I had actually published a textbook and I'd given him the textbook and he was actually understanding. But on an average, there was not very good service. And they felt that, look, I deserved what had happened to me.
Right. And for the record, Professor, there was also other incidents of abuse. According to your statement, you were also assaulted in other ways. You mentioned that 2 burly policemen assaulted you through punching.
Yes.
Can you just describe that incident, please?
Well, they felt they weren't satisfied, in terms of what statement I was making. And it says, "You bliksem sukuli on sal your base." And that's the time they actually punched me and sort of badly treated me.
And how long did that particular assault go on for?
Well, that actually went for quite a while until my hands, they weren't mobile.
All right. The complaint about your hands, that comes from the broomstick treatment.
Yes.
So that's separate to the punching
Yeah.
and other abuse. The broomstick treatment, how long was that approximately for?
Well, that took quite a lot of time. Of course, with this thing that they put in, the fingers and that used to move, but not 100%. But this particular guy, Kuhn, was determined. He was actually very considerate. And it took a lot of time, it took...
Yes. But the actual broomstick treatment, your statement mentioned that it went on for perhaps an hour to an hour and a half.
Yes,
Would that be
yes,
correct?
yes. Yeah, they wanted to sort of just, terrorize me.
Were you, Professor, were you aware during this interrogation, during this initial phase of interrogation, were you aware of any other detainee who was in the same area as you were? Were you told if there were other people who have been detained? Were you aware of that?
Not really. Subsequently, they said there are other people also that are actually detained. And these were sort of Indian people, according to them. But I mean,
That was much later.
yeah, much later.
It could have been several days after your detention. Yeah.
Well, the immobilize just happened during the first week. You know, I mean, so
Yes, but did you see any detainee during that period of your detention, the first 3-4 days? Did you see
I
any
didn't know
detainee?
who was actually arrested. Nothing at all.
Did you hear any person during that period in that corridor making any kind of noise?
No, it was difficult.
But do you remember that it was the 10th floor where you were kept?
That's right. Yeah,
And it was in an office.
it was.
Was it in an office? In an office? Were you interrogated in an office?
Yeah, it was in an office, and then of course subsequently in the cell.
Subsequently in a cell?
Yeah.
On a different floor? Or on the same floor? Can you recall that? I know it's been quite a while.
No, look.
And to the best of your recollection, that would assist us greatly if you would tell us whether you were taken to another floor and kept in a cell, and what was the position?
I mean, if you look at the thing from Johannesburg, I mean, it was second floor, third floor, but I'm not sure now.
Or the floor on which you were kept, you were able to see Forsbeck through the window?
Yes, you know, because I mean, it was facing.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Van Nieuwenhoek.
Thank you, Lord. Just to clarify His Lordship's questions, when you were in the cell, you were not being interrogated in the cell, you were simply sleeping and having your food there.
Yeah,
So the only questions put to you were on the 10th floor,
yeah,
and that was in an office with windows as opposed to an enclosed space.
yes. Not within the cell, but within the office.
I see. Once you had sustained the injury from the broomstick torture, were you then able to write?
No.
No.
Look, I've actually had a very beautiful handwriting. Sorry to say that. No, I couldn't actually write anything. But the physiotherapist, you know, A.J. Kuhn, was very concerned. I mean, he said, "Ek is baie jammer dat hulle dit vir jou gedoen het." And he actually was concerned. I mean, he said, "Look, how can the police actually do this to you?"
I see. Perhaps just describe the treatment you received from the physiotherapy and how long it took.
Look, it took a lot of time. I mean, it was actually like this, and they had to put the electrical thing there, around the thing, and, you know, it would go that way when the thing is actually used. So it took a lot of time.
So you were actually receiving a form of electrical treatment to heal your arm and hand.
Yeah.
And how often would you receive this treatment? And when and where did you receive it?
I had received the thing actually in the cell.
In the cell?
Yeah. And well, it used to happen, I think so,
Would it be every week?
once a week, yeah. Once a week or twice a week, depending on this physiotherapist called A.J. Kuhn.
I see.
How long were you held in detention?
Look, it took a lot of time. It was almost actually, 3 to 4 months.
About 4 months.
Hey,
You say it's about 4 months.
yeah,
4 or 6 months.
It was, order of the day, but they used to just come once a week or twice a week, the physiotherapists.
Yes. And the interrogation and the torture you're talking about, how long did it last? You were arrested on the 23rd of October on a Saturday. From that point onwards, how long did the interrogation and this torture last? Can you recall that?
Look, it used to sort of take place once a week or twice a week, depending on.
Throughout your stay there, once
Yes.
a week, twice a week?
Yeah.
Even after this police officer had said to you, he's sorry, as Yama, it continued nevertheless.
Look, it continued, but of course, depending on the other police. But, it didn't carry on in terms of treatment. Treatment was done because the magistrate that came there, he didn't feel comfortable to say that, look, they're not treating you properly.
So even after the visits by the magistrates, once in a week, they came in and took you for interrogation.
Look, they had interrogated me, but they sort of felt that, my hands must be completely recovered. Because, if they're going to let me go, there would be a problem.
Yes, but then when they took you in for interrogation, once in a week, as you say, were they asking you any questions about your involvement with Mr. Timol's unit, or they were concentrating on your recovery?
Look, once they actually, I made statements in terms of Timol and so forth.
Yes.
When I didn't know that, they had already sort of got rid of him by torture.
Okay.
But, I also didn't know that Timol was badly tortured and I think thrown out of the window. Nobody said anything.
But then during that period of detention, what I want to know is that, as you said, when you were brought to John Foster Square on the 23rd, you were interrogated and assaulted, right?
Yes.
Now, I want to know, to the best of your recollection, when did the assault stop?
You see, the assault actually stopped when a magistrate used to visit you, and he actually saw the thing, and he felt that he's going to talk to the people that had assaulted me. And so after that, they just left me alone, and then of course the physiotherapist had done his actually work.
So the magistrate saw the injuries.
Yeah.
Was this on his first visit or on her first visit? The magistrate, when he came to see you,
Sorry.
when the magistrate came to see you for the first
I
time.
think so. He was actually a little understanding person, and he got satisfied that, look, they are actually giving me treatment, physiotherapy, and the hands are beginning to be used again, and very much so the right hand.
I know this may be difficult for you, but would you remember who he was? The magistrate, would you remember the name or who he was, who came to visit you and instructed that they should give you treatment for your injuries? Would you remember the magistrate?
Sure.
You don't remember the magistrate, or do you? Do you understand the question I'm trying to pose?
Yes,
to you?
yeah, I know. Yes.
Yes, but look, I understand that this has been quite a while. If you cannot remember the magistrate, there's nothing wrong
You see,
with that.
there were sort of, number of police that used to come.
Yes.
And then, of course, your physiotherapist was also somebody that came regularly. And he was very understanding. And then his name was A.J. Kuhn.
His name was?
A.J. Kuhn, K-O-E-N.
A.J. Kuhn. Was he a police officer?
No. He was a physiotherapist.
He was a therapist. Did he say who sent him to come and see you?
Look, he didn't say who sent him. But he says, look, ek is baie jammer dat hulle dit vir jou gedoen het. Obviously, the police had actually consulted him to come down and treat this sort of completely.
So after he started with his treatment, were there any further assaults that took place?
No, I don't think so. There wasn't any assault. I mean, the police that was very concerned was Gert van Tonde. And he was very, he said, look, ek is baie jammer dat hulle dit vir jou gedoen het. And he actually sort of took a little bit of interest in trying to see that the physiotherapy is properly done.
And can you recall after how many days following your arrest did this therapist come? You were arrested on a Saturday. Could he have come on the Monday or the Tuesday? Would you have an idea when was this?
Look, I think so they were coming twice a week, the physiotherapists.
Yes, the first time, for the very first time when he came through. Do you remember how long after your arrest was this?
Look, it was after, I think so, a week, could have been.
About
because
a week.
Van Tonde, said, look, it's baie jammer. And he says, look, he's going to see to it that some medical treatment will be done.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Van. You may proceed.
Thank you, my lord. Lord, perhaps this would be an appropriate moment to hand up the police file in respect of Kantalao Naik. We were supplied the police file by the investigating officer. We have flagged 1 or 2 pages for the court.
Yes.
And there is a copy for the witness as well.
Thank you.
And I'm told that the police council also has a copy as well. My lord, it is
This
quite
would be what?
my lord, yes.
We're working on G as
We
the
think
A.
this would be volume G number 3.
G3.
G3.
We still continue with G, so it's
Yeah.
G3. Okay. Do you have further questions? I just want to ask one question before we take adjournment.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, yes.
But you
Before
please
we
proceed.
take adjournment, yes. Professor, were you ever charged for any offense following your detention?
No.
You were
not
never
at all.
brought to court?
Not as soon as I got released, nothing happened.
You were just released?
I was just released.
They never came back to you to ask you to be a witness in any other case?
No.
And during 1972, where were you? Were you still in the country? In 1972. That is a year after your arrest. Were you in the country?
I was actually still in Rudaport.
You're still in Rhodoport.
Yeah.
And no one came to you about the inquest of Mr. Timol, or were you requested to come and testify in regard to that inquest as to what happened to you in detention?
No, subsequently, I mean, there wasn't something from the police at all. And there was nothing else that was.
I'm looking at the time. I need to see Vice President is here, and then we'll come back at 11:30.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll adjourn until 11:30. Professor, we'll continue with you at 11:30.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Does he have the same signature as, is it the same signature as this fellow here? Or is that the VP?
No,
Is this the second? Yeah, can you quickly find the name of the magistrate who wrote this report? By inspecting these documents. Ask Connie to borrow It doesn't actually give us 90 sounds, unlike.
There's some the magistrate's name is mentioned in this file, right?
Sorry. One morning.
1938. I used to work with Judge Ghost, and there we worked in one of the things together. Very good question.
Well, I just think as they talk, and then can I just finish writing the story, then I'll give you my laptop? Okay.
But she's fine. She's fine. That's fine. Yeah, those names.
He was arrested.
I don't know whether there isn't one you understand. Oh, today. Hey man, it's not easy to wake up these days, man. Hey, in fact, yeah, but I arrived when, well, before you announced, I arrived when you were
Associated with
Yes. Remember when you know government, if you don't take your leave, but I'm only from last week I was on leave, but I almost went to home. You're not going to get trouble. Yeah. Not the phone. You know what, ne? After tomorrow, I'm going on leave. The whole of recess. Until the 24th of November. You guys will go to recess. No, I'm tired. I just want to. Zikhona chona. Khawute. Kushada malungelo boy. Mara vakasatla valithu. Malungelo boy. That's one. Eh? That one. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it's in TV. Which one?
Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy.
No, there isn't why.
Yes,
No, there isn't why.
yeah.
I'm not saying Paul. We'll talk about it, but I hear your concern. I'm just saying Paul. Due to the age thing, I know what the government will share and no. But they when our hands, I never did that. Right. I never did that. Because you are the one who is supposed to go and contact. No. I'm not going to. Okay, well,
Once you subpoena,
Tabai
it's yours.
Sheikh, Tabai Sheikh.
Use it. Once you subpoena, it's yours.
Yeah, they lost
That's the
it.
rule.
Yeah. Now when they gonna
Yeah,
have to
Chihuahua.
tell you. But like if I had to leave you court. NPA.
No matter NPA,
Yeah, no. You will NPA of the knowledge. The person who buy like a
But when who contradicted these two things? The subpoena versus any order.
Why they
What is that torture called?
voicing out corner because the little boat is
Oh, Pele, he was telling us, he was not asking. He was telling us.
But when you check, like I see,
get proper
Proper instruction.
you stand to be corrected.
Yeah. You say, but my lord, I don't think that is
Did you hear that torture? What was it called? Helicopter?
the helicopter method.
Yeah.
They're dealing with methods. I'll check you now on that day. I'll correct you on Twitter.
Yeah, you're correct.
I'm writing a story now. Not
It's like why is that doing?
So they will take you to the judge.
No, but you know, we are friends on Facebook. Have you ever seen something bizarre? I'm not even going to say anything about the judgment. Even
I
the one.
even told Mana, I don't have any control between us. They are going to stay with privacy.
No, listen, Ovana, this is Ovana. Not always. It's on the term. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you become a judge or only. And on look at whether you are a millionaire or you are a centennial, if you go to pay, so play back behavior wise. You understand? But what is the biggest thing? Your judge is going to come to you. One of the let us say, let us address the council. You look at that guy, why did you do that? That might be it's not fair. The next thing I mind to go for no. Over the Mola woman to make a morning judge or a mobile like judge. I would say, is a teammate here. These things are awful. We are having a private session. We are having a private session.
like that guy is listening to us.
Yeah.
Why is he laughing?
Hey, funded. Yeah, by the way. Hey, let's see. To push for the different now and then.
he could not remember the rest.
No more like serious. No matter what the issue, the issue become consulting to the people, all the stakeholders, then you come with your own rules. Understand? More like whatever the budget is, and whatever to say, and come to say, this is what I'm doing. And gives away your rights to say or Shimara. Now I think it should be addressed in this way. You understand? So you don't have that already. That you just decided on his own. What is it? Why I can't bother? Maybe that way is missing the point. No, Maragaba gore that mara bo mabitso le dileng motho o kumeditse dibuka tse dikgolo so go bile le maina a mantšha a sa tseba ke lepara o bolelena mabane ba mokgatha shot ka lo ba mofa pishedi ne wena ebile wa tsa go thoma akere ba mofa question wa tsa mpia ge e lata mutla e tlaka e ka yo lata straight ka e swantše e bo o tabola fela o petla ka daete enkele gona e jika ka go this is amole di mani pala go le ena a swantše a dule o go le mabana tlhatlhamolla behind that machine mama sara yeah a dithu a thoma go
I just want to know, how do you spend your days?
Council, please approach the judge. State attorney, you're also requested to come. Should I say that? Zikon. Should I say that? After calling Zikon. Okay, so
Silence in court. All right.
Mr. Vani, the document you gave me just before we adjourned.
Lord, we put up as Exhibit G3.
Yeah,
Stroke 3038. Detained under Article 6.1 of Act 83 of 1967, in brackets terrorism,
yeah.
23 October 1971. And then finally, the heading is accessed at the National Archives in Pretoria on Wednesday, 15 December 2004.
The
and my Lord,
subsequent pages, I'm more concerned about those.
yes.
Who compiled these subsequent pages?
My Lord, we understand that this is the police file in connection with Professor Nike.
Including this, what appears to be a media statement on page 1.
The media statement, that would appear to have been inserted subsequently. We must apologize that this document is not paginated and it's only numbered in certain sections. My Lord, we will undertake to get you overnight a paginated version together with an index. But with
Yes.
your
I just want to have my understanding as to its evidential value. Is this compiled by the police, or is it someone else who compiled it, taking excerpts from the police file? That's what I want to know. What is the standing?
But, my Lord, we'll have to call Captain Bennell, the investigating officer, to
Clear this up?
to clear this up.
Yes, because I want to know whether I'm dealing with a document that was put together by the police or a document that was put together by the investigator accessing the police records, so that I'm clear in my mind as to what is the status of this document. Are you with me?
I'm with you, my Lord.
Yes. Yeah, okay, fine. Then we can continue with the witness. That we'll do later.
We will recall Captain Bennell for that purpose, and in fact we have asked for the police files in respect of all the relevant cases.
Yes.
And so he will also have to offer evidence in relation to the other files.
Yes.
And all these files, my Lord, contain, most importantly, reports of magistrates in relation to visits that were undertaken.
Okay, fine. You may proceed.
Thank you, my Lord. Professor Knight, you've been given a copy of this police file, which I've read out the title. According to this document, during the month of November, you were visited by a magistrate on 4 occasions, the 3rd of November, the 9th of November, the 16th of November, and the 23rd of November. Does that sound approximately right to you?
Yes.
In relation to the first visit, you made a complaint about food. You advised them that you were a vegetarian and that you needed vegetarian food. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
In relation to the visits on the 9th and the 16th of November, according to this file, you didn't make any specific complaints or requests. If you can't recall, you can just simply say you can't recall.
It's very difficult.
Yes. No, we understand. This goes back
But
some
when-
46 years. However, on the 23rd of November, you did make a specific complaint, and I'm going to read out to you how it was recorded, and you can comment on the correctness of the recording. It was recorded by the magistrate as follows. I did not tell you last time, but during October, the people who were questioning me bound my wrists with cloth and put my bound hands over my knees so that and the typing is a bit obscured here, so that you were in a squatting position. Yeah. They then put a broomstick through at the back of my knees and suspended me between two tables. The cloth was tied tightly around my wrists, with the result that my muscles became weak. I have no marks that I can point out. I'm getting medical attention every day for my weakened muscles. I have no requests. Do you recall making that statement to a magistrate?
Yes, I do.
And my Lord, the document will reflect that there were at least two magistrates who was visiting Professor Naik, Alandros M.J. Meiring, as well as Alandros A.W. Brink, and we will point out in the document exactly where those reports are.
Yes, it's got to be paginated because it's. I'm struggling to follow the pages here.
Yes. Well, Lord, we do wish to refer you and the witness to the most substantial report in this document, and I believe that that might be the second or third pink slip that is stuck into your exhibit. It's a document that is dated 24 November 1971. It also has a stamp of the Department of Justice, which is dated 29th November 1971.
Yeah, it's difficult to follow it without pagination. I'm unable to find the text you are referring me to.
I'm only going to put a few things to the witness.
Is it one of the documents you have marked with this?
Yes, indeed. I think it's either the first or the second one.
Oh. You say, what's the date again?
It has two dates on it. In type, it's dated 24 November 71.
Yes, I have.
And the date stamp is 29/11 of 71.
Yes, I have that.
And in fact, my Lord, on the first page you will see the quote that I've just read out in relation to the broomstick torture. And if we can turn to page 3 of that report, I wonder if I can ask perhaps one of my attorneys to assist the witness in finding the passage. Alternatively, I can just read the passage to him. That might be quicker, Your Lordship. Professor, according to this report, which was compiled by a magistrate by the name of Landros R.W. Brink, you were visited on a number of occasions, and we have gone through your November visits. It does include references to reports provided by various people, including the district surgeon, Vernon Dennis Kemp. Do you recall being examined by a Dr. Kemp?
Very difficult to sort of,
Your Lordship, can I ask again for the front door to be closed?
but well, you had regular visits by the doctor, and of course he actually said that, look, things are actually improving in terms of your hand, because with the electrical machine, that would make your hands close and open, and trying to sort of repair the muscles.
I see. I just want to read the paragraph dealing with what Dr. Kemp had to say. And it reads as follows. It's in Afrikaans, and we can translate it if you need translation. Vernon Dennis Kemp, District Kanseer, sal verklaar dat hy by die aanhoudenis op 27/10/1971 by Veiligheidspolisie Johannesburg ondersoek het. Gehoudene 'n rapport aan hom gemaak het as gevolg van by aangehoudene ondersoek het. Hy gevind het aangehoudene se linkerhand effens verlam is. My understanding is that means slightly paralyzed. And looks like there's some type missing.
Should be rechterhand.
Rechterhand, bijna heeltemal verlam vanaf die gafrug. And again, type is missing. Saying your right hand was more completely paralyzed.
Paralyzed, yeah.
Lieutenant Colonel Greiling versoek het om aangehoudene te handel deur 'n fysiotherapist. Hy geen beserings gehoudene sy arme gesien het nie. Hy nie voor voltooi het nie. In brackets, toegetuie deur kolonel van R, unfortunately type is missing, gevra was wat die aard van die aangehoudene se rapport by hom meegedeel het, dat hy nie meer die aard daar kan onthou nie. So essentially, Professor Dr. Kemp is saying that your left hand was slightly paralyzed, your right hand more or completely paralyzed. Would you agree with that observation?
Yes, thank you.
Nonetheless, there appears to be a qualification that the physiotherapist apparently said that hy geen beserings geoudene sy arm gesien het nie.
Is it a physiotherapist or is it Colonel Greiling? He says Colonel Greiling asked that the physiotherapist must visit him.
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure whether when the sentence continues that hy geen beserings gehoudene sy arms gesien het nie. I don't know whether this refers to Greiling or the physiotherapist self.
Yes, it's potentially either way. Your Lordship, if we were to look at the next paragraph,
Yeah.
which is in fact is the
Physiotherapist.
physiotherapist, he refers to the injury as Saturday night paralysis, and they're suggesting that it was not serious, and so my reading would probably be that the physiotherapist was reporting to Greiling that there were not,
That he did not see.
he did not see any injuries.
The problem is the text is, it has been cut off on the side.
Yes,
And it doesn't really, it's not very, very much helpful.
yes.
In terms of,
I think we must ask Captain Nell if he can put before Your Lordship the original document.
if the original is there, it will be helpful. You don't have to worry about interpreting it. I think I'll manage. I just need a full text.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, Your Lordship. Professor, according to this document, you were interrogated by a large number of officers, 18 in total. Does that sound right to you?
I'm not quite sure of the number.
You don't have to be,
Yeah.
but does that sound approximately
But
correct?
of course, you know, you had different police coming to see you. And one of the difficulties was, you know, they wanted to find out whether the treatment that's given by A.J. Kuhn or whatever, physiotherapist, has been working. And they would actually ask me to show whether this thing is working or not,
Yes.
muscles.
But if we can focus on the initial period, because according to these records, your interrogation began at 6 p.m. on the evening of Saturday, 23rd October, and then carried on through periodic sessions of interrogation, which lasted all the way through until the 5th of November. Not in one stretch. You've already testified that you were taken to the cells from time to time. But nonetheless, it still seems as if during those few days, you in fact went through fairly intensive periods of interrogation. Would that be correct?
Yes.
And were there, did you get the impression there were shifts, something of a roster system for interrogators, because it wasn't the same interrogators all the time? They were changing.
Yeah, they were changing.
One of your interrogators we have, in fact, the names of all your interrogators, but one of your interrogators was a warrant officer else, who commenced his interrogation of you at 7 in the evening on the 24th of October. Now, in fact, he alleges that, and perhaps I'm going to read this to you, it's in Afrikaans. My Lord, this is in the same document on page 6 at the top of the page, next to the letters A16.
Yes.
So R/O Neville Else, Veiligheidspolisie John Vorster Plain, sal verklaar dat hy
A/O should have meant at that time adjutant officer,
Adjutant.
warrant officer.
officer, exactly.
That must have been his rank.
That's our understanding of his
Yeah.
rank. Yeah. dat bij aan kaptein van Heerden, die aangehoudene vanaf 10:20 nm namiddag op 23/10/1971, 23 October 1971, tot om 7 VM voormiddag op 24/10/71, 24 October 1971, ondervra het. Aangehoudene altyd met sy hande in 'n gevoude posisie gestaan het of gesit het. Hy geen kennis dra van 'n aanranding op aangehoudene nie. Tengenomde ook nie 'n aanranding aan hom rapporteer het nie. Just to summarize, Professor, according to the report supplied by Adjunct Officer Neville Else, together with a Captain van Heerden, you were questioned between 10:20 in the evening, all the way through until 7 in the morning on the morning of the 24th, and that you were either standing or sitting. Can you comment on that allegation?
No, look, that seems to be the situation.
I see.
Yeah.
He says from 10 in the evening on the 23rd, that is Saturday, until the following day, 7 o'clock, you were standing there with your arms folded and sometimes sitting down, and they were interrogating you during that period. And basically that you did not tell them about any assault, and they don't have any knowledge about any assault on you.
Well, you see, they didn't want you to say things that you were tortured. And,
It was during that period that you were tortured, overnight. Did the torture begin at that time? The evening of your arrest?
Well, I mean, you were so sort of terrified, and you weren't quite sure whether you want to say that, you know, these things have been done by your police or whatever. You know, you were under terrible situation.
Yes, I understand that you wouldn't say this to anyone, even to the police who are doing this to you. But what I want to know is, can you confirm now that this period that Warrant Officer Else is referring to, from 10 in the evening on the 23rd, that's Saturday, he was questioning you until the following day at about 7 o'clock. He says sometimes you were sitting, sometimes you were standing, and you had your arms folded. During that time, was there any assault or injury inflicted on you during that period? The very first evening of your detention. Can you recall if there was?
I'm not quite sure about the thing from what, you know, that was the situation. I mean,
You're not sure whether you were assaulted?
You know, I mean, with the physiotherapist treatment, it seemed to be helping.
Yes, look, the physiotherapist treatment came after.
Yeah.
Your first day of detention, right? Let's get to that day, when you were arrested and brought to John Foster Square. Do you recall at what time did the assault start on you? When did they start with the assault on you? On the first day, the very first day, do you recall?
I think so. It was actually in the afternoon, but I'm not.
In the afternoon of the same day.
Yeah.
So by the time Warrant Officer Else came at 10, 20 past 10, 10:20 in the evening, you had already been assaulted
Yes.
in the afternoon.
Yeah,
Okay,
so-
yes, that's what I wanted to know. Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you for clarifying that, Your Lordship. In the evening when Warrant Officer Neville Else, together with Captain van Heerden, took over the interrogation, do you recall whether you were further assaulted in that period? So on the same day of your detention, but late in the evening. If you can't recall, you can simply tell the court.
Is that the first day that I got taken in?
This is the night of your arrest. Yeah.
I think the assault was probably done the following day, but could have been, wasn't it the same day that I got arrested? I mean, it didn't happen. It could have happened the next day, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But definitely I got assaulted. There's no two ways about it.
Did you get the impression that you were being kept in detention for all these months in order to ensure that your hands and your arms were being healed and recovered?
I think, in terms of this Head van Tonder, he said that, look, they're going to treat you and don't panic. And so this treatment started by the physiotherapist. But it was done regularly, until he felt that I was able to, use, my fingers and all that. Because it was this hand that was badly,
Yes.
yeah.
And at what stage did the interrogations or questioning stop? Or did they carry on throughout the period of your detention?
Look, after the treatment and all those things, the torture was, they didn't torture me afterwards. When of course, the physiotherapist started treating me.
So once the physiotherapist started treating you, there was no more torture, no more
There's no
assaults?
more torture. And one of the security police, called Sergeant van Tonder, he was quite understanding. He says, look, ek is baie jammer dat hulle dit vir jou gedoen het. Now, he actually came to know me because I had actually published a textbook and he wanted a textbook for his son. And so, look, he was a little sort of understanding. He said, look, ek is baie jammer dat hulle dit vir jou gedoen het. So he knew that, the other police, security police, had tortured me.
But you've testified to this court that you nonetheless made a complaint to the magistrate. Did you lay charges against the police for the torture?
Look, it could be regarded as charges, but I had to withdraw the thing. They were actually pressurizing.
How did they pressurize you to withdraw the charges?
Well, they said, you're actually trying to sort of blame us, but you're actually not going to get out. You're going to be here forever. So, their torture was actually sort of verbal after physical torture.
So you considered their request to withdraw charges And ultimately, what did you decide to do?
Well, I thought, look, if I'm not going to withdraw the charges, I'm not going to be released. I mean, look, you were totally sort of immobilized mentally, you didn't know what to do. You couldn't even talk to somebody to say, look, do I do this? And so it was not that easy.
Not that easy because you were held in solitary confinement and you were saying you were uncertain what to do.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you just advise the court how you came to your decision and what that decision was.
Well, to withdraw the charges.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't that easy. I mean, if you actually had discussed the thing with somebody that you know, but I mean, I was just myself, and because this guy called Herr van Tonle was somebody that knew me quite well before my detention. I had actually published calculations in physical sciences for matriculants, and I had given Van Tonder a free book. So that was the relationship. I mean, he was understanding, but of course the other people that were police had actually tortured me. So my hands became immobilized.
I see.
And very much of the right hand.
If we were to show you photographs of the of officers who were present in John Vorster Square at that time, do you think you might be able to recognize any of the faces?
This is not that easy because, I mean, some of them had been there and very difficult.
I see.
I would say I knew Van Tonder because of this thing, but the others that came in were there actually to do some duties in terms of looking after a person like me. And not that I was actually troublesome.
Right. Were you informed at any point in time that you would not be charged? You would not face prosecution?
I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
I see.
If I had, look, you could have taken a particular sort of thing and say, hey, look, I'm not prepared to do. And I thought, look, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen to me. So you also actually sort of
right.
Totally confused.
Yes, I can understand. According to the documents that we've submitted as an exhibit, you were ultimately released on the 7th of March,
Yes,
1972. Does that sound right to you?
that's fine.
And before you were released, were you asked to sign an affidavit?
Yes.
And who drew up that affidavit?
Affidavit was drawn by the security people.
The security people?
Yeah.
And what did that affidavit say?
That I was treated with dignity and respect and not being tortured. I mean, this is what they wanted, so that they would be free of any accusation.
And can you recall whether you signed the affidavit?
I think so.
Yes.
I mean, it was, you were in a tight corner, whether you had to, if you didn't sign it, they would still keep you at John Vorster Square.
Yes. And one can certainly understand
yeah.
that kind of pressure.
And many of the security police that were looking after all these people that were detained, they weren't very understanding. But you see, Fanton there, I had actually published this thing textbook, so he actually had a copy of that, and he was but understanding to say, look, I'm not somebody that is going to kill people. Which is true. I'm not going to do that. And I'm also actually was a follower of Mahatma Gandhi. That, so I wouldn't have actually killed anybody.
And following your release from detention, can you briefly describe to the court what happened to you?
Well, it wasn't an easy period. A lot of people within the community felt that, I was the guy that actually was responsible for Timol's death, which is not true. I didn't say anything regarding other people. And so that became not pleasant time for me. But the truth eventually came forward, and people look, the situation is very difficult for me to sort of make a public statement. Look, some people were understanding, some people weren't. There's not much I could do. The truth is that, I didn't put Timol into difficulty.
You haven't sought legal advice about it on your release as to how you could handle that situation?
Well, I actually had friends that did law. Also in terms of my daughter, who was also going to study for law. And that was their order of the day.
And which particular associates of yours were holding this view? Was it colleagues at work, or was it just members of the community where you live who held that view that you were working for the police?
It was very difficult to decide within the community who's actually for you or who you against you. It wasn't easy.
And do you have an idea as to how could this has come about? Who let out this information, or who caused the information to reach the members of the community that you're working with the police?
Very difficult to say. Some people were very understanding and said, look, we're sorry that you got tortured.
So you don't know where this whole thing came from?
Well, look, I can't even pinpoint that who was actually spread things. But as time went on, things just, people probably understood my difficulties.
Yes. Now, Professor, I'm going to ask you this question now. And you want to clear your name in that regard. Do you want to clear your name that you were not informing on the police?
Well, that's the truth. I'm not actually, I didn't, look, there were a lot of friends of mine who could have been involved, but I didn't want to say these things to the security police.
Yes.
That's not actually true.
So it is not true that you're informing on the police?
No.
Okay.
The only person that actually, within my detention, that I found that they actually tortured Timol, and actually it wasn't me. It could have been other people that were actually also beaten who could have said that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vani? I think you've covered most of this evidence.
Yes, my Lord, in fact, that concludes our evidence in chief for this witness.
Yes. Mr. Pretorius.
Thank you, my Lord. Professor Knight, you said you were a very good friend of Ahmed Timol. You were both from Roodepoort and you were teachers together, not so?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe us what type of person Ahmed Timol was?
Ahmed Timol was an exceptionally nice person. I mean, he wasn't a difficult guy. And he was very friendly. I mean, he wasn't somebody that was going to go and kill people.
Was he the type of guy that would have got involved in a brawl or in a pub fight or something like that?
No, I think so. In terms of his makeup, he was actually a good teacher, and he wasn't sort of hitting the children. And so I think, it wasn't sort of a situation where he was going to.
Professor Naik, I'm going to try to see, this is official records that's been kept by the Department of Justice.
Yes.
About the incarceration and the detainment at that stage, and there was this complaint, and according to this official records, in A4, A15, A23 and A33 you gave the following version of what happened to you, where it states, I'm going to read it in Afrikaans, you follow Afrikaans and
yes,
just see if you can agree with me on some matters. Inderman Kantelal Chaginal Naik sal verklaar dat hy aangehou word kragtens die wet op terrorisme, te John Foster Plain, Johannesburg. 3 blanke mans hom op 10 voormiddag op 24/10/1971 geneem het vir verdere ondervraging tot 1 namiddag. Een van hulle tafel geskryf het, terwyl die ander 2 hom onder selfde tyd oor 'n stok wat oor sy elmboog en tussen, en dit het nou weggeval, sy bene deurgesteek was, tussen 2 tafels opgehang het, op genoemde wyse gehang het en heen en weer geswaai het, wat van ongeveer 3 tot 5 minute as gevolg waarvan sy linkerhand effens verlam geraak het en sy regterhand erg verlam afgekom het as gevolg van die hangery. Die frisgeboude wit man hom ongeveer 5 houe met die gebalde vuis op die bors geslaan het en ongeveer 15 houe met sy plathand op sy rug. Die plathand het uitgeval ongelukkig. Dit baie seer was en hy gevoel het dat dit swel was. Hy deur die betrokke mans blykbaar aangesien was vir ene Kantilal Balak en hy derhalwe aangerand is. Does that refresh your memory a bit of what happened in 1971, Professor Naik?
Yeah.
Is that more or less what happened to you?
He does. I was Kantilal Naik, and there was a student called Kantilal Bala. And we're two totally different people.
Yeah, I just want to point out to the official records, according where Warrant Officer Elf, he only took him on the following day, my lord, from the previous day on the 23rd of October 71, from 10 till the following morning, and according to the version that's been provided then, that it was 10 voormiddag op 24 the next day.
It looks like there were a number of officials taking turns throughout the day and even in the evening and so on,
Yes.
questioning him. And all of them, the purpose of these statements, as far as I can see quickly, because I just got this document now, they seem to deny that there were any injuries that they saw and that he has ever made any reports to them about injuries. That's the essence.
That's the essence. I'm not going to belabor the point.
Yeah.
There's a number, there's half of pages, but I'm not going to belabor the point. On that score, were you ever in a sling or in a plaster of Paris? The fact that you got injured and that, were you ever in a sling or were you in plaster of Paris? Was there physical things that they help you with your arms?
No, it was actually in the sling, and the physiotherapist people try to treat with the machine.
Thank you, my
It
lord.
was actually sort of.
In the sling. Thank you, my lord. That concludes my question.
Thank you. Professor, thank you very much for your evidence. I have your statement, your affidavit here, and should there be a need to call you again, we'll do so, but I don't think at this stage it will be necessary. So I'd like to thank you for your evidence, and if you have anything that you want to say to me now, you can do so.
I wish to sincerely thank you and other people to listen to what exactly happened to me. And it wasn't easy to live because people thought, you were a police spy, which is not true. I was not going to report any of the people to the police. And one went through a sort of nasty time. But I must thank the Almighty for many things. And I'm actually thankful to you people to listen to my story. It's not that I wanted to say that Timol was a bad guy. He wasn't. He was actually very energetic and very friendly. It's said that, of course, the security police had taken and killed him. Because I know that, my hands were actually totally immobilized. And I wasn't sure that, I'm going to get my hands to do things. I couldn't even use and I couldn't even write. And I've got beautiful handwriting, but now, as time went on and when they treated, I thought, look, things are going to be better. And it was said that, a person like Timol, we lost him in terms of the tragedy from the security police. They had not actually value of somebody that was beautiful and good teacher as Ahmed Timol. And then that I can say without any doubt.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
And I hope the family of late Timol, look, we know that it shouldn't have happened to him. But I'm just actually praying to God that the family will remember Timol as a very good teacher, an excellent person. And that is my viewpoint also. And thank you to you people as well.
Thank you, Professor.
From the bottom of my heart.
You are excused, you may go now. Thank you very much, we have heard you. And as I said, if there's a need to call you again, we'll do so.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Mr. Vani, I'm in your hands.
My Lord, the next witness is Mr. Mohammed Timol.
Yes.
Ahmed Timol?
Do you have any objection to the oath?
No.
Do you swear that the evidence that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please raise your right hand and say so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, Mr. Timol. And like all other witnesses, if you feel you want to testify seated, you are welcome to
Thank
do
you
so.
very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if you need us to break, you've got to indicate, and then we'll give you that time.
Thank you, Minister.
Okay, thank you very much. Proceed.
Thank you, Richard. Mr. Timol, can you describe your relationship with the late Ahmed Timol?
Ahmed was my older brother. There was an age gap of between 7 and 8 years. He was my mentor. We grew up in a family that had very little. Ahmed was the eldest brother, and that one of the things he always implored on us is that education is the most important thing.
Mr. Timol, have you made out an affidavit for purposes of assisting this inquest?
Yes?
You have a copy of that affidavit?
Yes, I have it with me.
And you confirm its contents?
Yes.
My Lord, this affidavit is part of volume C at page 121. Mr. Timol, you've described your relationship with your late brother Ahmed, and that he was your mentor. Can you inform this court that as a result of perhaps some of that mentoring, how it was that you got involved in politics or anti-apartheid work?
Growing up in the late 50s, early 60s, it was a time of much upheaval in South Africa. The organizations of the people was subsequently banned after the Sharpeville massacre. And my recollection at the age of 12 is that this impacted immensely on Ahmed and myself. We used to have just normal political discussions at home on the African National Congress, the Transvaal Indian Congress. Ahmed had close friends who were Esop and Aziz Pahad, who lived in Johannesburg and who lived in Roodepoort. Our parents were also friends. And I think growing up around that time and with his association with the Pahad brothers, he was highly politically conscious of the oppression that was taking place in South Africa and apartheid as a whole.
And would you say that as a result of those kinds of discussions and interactions that you yourself became politicized, and if so, what kinds of activities did you get involved in?
Yes, through Ahmed as well as the surroundings of Roodepoort and our ongoing fights with the local white community, as well as the police raids, and particularly on the domestic workers who lived in the Roodepoort areas for their past, as well as the mine workers who walked past through our area in Roodepoort from the station to the Durban Deep Mine, and the continuous harassment of African people. Generally, we became very aware, and we just could not stomach what was happening to them. And this was my involvement and my consciousness of what was happening in our surroundings and in South Africa.
And as a youngster, did you have any brushes with the law?
In 1966, May, annually there was a celebration of the Republic of South Africa. To us, that celebration was mainly for white South Africans because it had nothing to do with us. At our school, before May 31st, a flagpole was installed at our school with the intention of hoisting the South African flag. Myself and a few of my friends that evening went to the school and removed that flag, removed the flagpole with the intention that that flag must not be hoisted the following day. We also wrote slogans on the wall, release Mandela and long live the ANC. A few days after this, the following morning at assembly, there was no flagpole, so the flag could not be hoisted. And obviously, we did not participate in assembly singing of the stem.
And did the police approach you at some point in relation to that incident?
A few days after this particular activity of ours, it was after school. I had my lunch at school. It was a small area where we were living in, and I was off to meet my friends. And I was approached by this Indian man who asked, "Are you Ahmed Timol?" I said, "Yes." He gave me one smack and he said, "Get in the car," and that was a security policeman. I was taken to the security police offices and found some of my friends were already there. And we were beaten up at the security police head office and interrogated, kicked, smacked. We were all very young people, students. And ultimately, I think all of us broke and confessed that we were responsible for removing the flagpole and writing the slogans on the school wall.
What year was this?
That was in 1966.
Oh, 66.
And this was beginning of June. I distinctly remember because we were then locked up at the police station, and Senator Bob Kennedy visited South Africa, invited by the South Africans, by NUSAS.
And were you criminally charged as a result?
We were charged under the Suppression of Communism Act for our activities. And negotiations between our attorney and the state attorney, after some time of negotiation, we were actually detained for about 5 days, and then we were released on bail. And we had to appear in court sometime later, and there were negotiations between our attorney and the state attorney, and it was agreed that we were 7 of us, we will plead guilty, and that we will be given a suspended sentence. So we pleaded guilty. When we were pleading in court, we pleaded guilty. We were sentenced to 1 month suspended for 10 years. But we had a record of being convicted under the Suppression of Communism Act.
And Mr. Timol,
Excuse me, Your Honor, I pray the court be merciful to me. I'm at the mercy of the court. I'm not wanting to take away from the importance and the terrors that this gentleman suffered. But I myself suffered tremendous terrors under the apartheid era. Collecting and recalling my mother being burned alive for the struggle, my father being murdered under the administration of Adrian Vlok, Minister of Defense at that time. Nothing was done. The terrors that we faced daily of police raiding the house, properties of my grandfather being confiscated for marrying an African woman, being of royal descent from the Netherlands. But the current situation of the country is as such. I suffer now even worse terrors than my grandchildren. And the courts are aware of the judicial bias. There, not only as the single candidate nominated for the office of the state president as the leader of South African Federal Union political party, all my rights, the rights of my son and my grandchildren, whom I have come to the court repeatedly and asked for mercy. Attorney firms were appointed under Rule 40. I approached law societies, pro bono, human rights attorneys, legal aid, legal resources centered to attempt to speak to advocate resource. I attempted everything, ran in circles in the country. Currently,
listen.
an unlawful judge. No, Your Honor, please, this needs to be spoken.
You will speak, you'll get a time to speak. Listen, listen, you will have time
they
to
were
speak.
found guilty. The judicial prejudice.
You are now disrupting the proceedings, ma'am.
The organs of the state being
Yes.
complete disregard of the court.
Captain Nell, can you help us,
of
please?
the country.
She's disrupting the proceedings.
Disrupting the Constitution.
You are disrupting the proceedings, ma'am.
I have the evidence right here of what I
You are
said.
disrupting the proceedings, you'll be
The
assisted.
terror now is that the country is being held hostage by national and international terrorists. The President Jacob Zuma in Parliament was found guilty in the... Now, allow me to speak because they do not have the right to speak in the media because of Section 16. I'm invoking the Constitution, my right to speak. Section 60, Section 2, no, not me. Section 7(2), that the
My Lord, can I suggest an early adjournment for lunch?
Yes, we'll take a short adjournment now.
Well, I said to the judge, let's have a real lunch adjournment.
Oh.
Beiding bestaan.